Strong side, weak side, a term that's often coined you may have heard. If not, by hopefully the end of this video, you'll understand what it means. This is me, Doglightning's How to Support episode 4. It'll be split into timestamps. The first section talking about what is strong side, weak side. Part 2 will be focusing on what to do when you're on weak side. And part 3 will be focusing what to do when you're on strong side. I hope you enjoy. If you're not a support main or a bot lane, this does apply for top lane, but usually reversed. And if you're a mid laner, it's important to know the differences, so hopefully this will apply to everyone. Enjoy, guys. What is strong side and what is weak side? It's actually a really simple concept. The whole concept basically is whichever side your jungle is moving towards is the strong side. So if your jungle starts bot side with a leash and moves towards top side is now your strong side, and bot side is now your weak side. And it's really obvious if you think about why. If any sort of a fight happens top side, you have 1, 2, 3 members because your jungler is there. But if a fight happens bot side, you only have 3 members versus their potential 4. Again, also, because your jungle can start anywhere, if your jungle starts top side and he moves towards the bot side, this is now your strong side and top side is now your weak side. And again, why? Because on your bot side, you will have 4 members to fight, versus if you fought top side, you would only have 2 because your jungle moves bot side. So basically the idea is whichever side of the map your jungle is on is kind of your strong side for the time. It's not always like that because sometimes you'll be there just to farm and leave and you could be the designated weak side. But in general, if your jungle's on your side of the map, you are in the strong side at the moment. So a little example before we move into specifics is also, I want to mention that if your jungle is pathing up towards the top side, and their jungle also leashed, you cannot assume he is pathing top because he could do a camp and go bot. So even though you are weak side and the enemy top is your top laner strong because your jungle leashed and went top, just because the enemy bot leashes their jungle doesn't mean they're on the weak side also. They can leash but still be on strong side. And same with you. You can leash bot and your jungle can do a camp like this and gank and you could actually be in the strong side. So you cannot judge if you're on weak side or strong side based on where the enemy is going usually. And it's usually based on where your jungler is going. Hopefully that was useful. And now I'm going to be moving in how to play if you're on the weak side of the map. How do you play weak side in League of Legends? Well, I'm going to show you. So first of all, there's 2 scenarios when you're playing weak side. So usually you're leashing your jungle and your jungle is pathing top side. That's why you're on the weak side and your strong side is top side. But the enemy bot lane has 2 scenarios. There's the scenario where the enemy bot lane leashes and when they don't leash. So in this scenario, we're going to start with if they do leash, since this is the most common in solo queue and lower elos. Junglers like to start on their bot side where they get a double leash from their bot lanes. So we'll start in this where you guys are both leashing. In this scenario, both people will be coming from after a leash a little bit late as the wave is already connected. So at this point, you leashed and you know the enemy bot lane leashed because the gate came late. So you know both junglers started bot. But to start off, because you both leashed does not mean you're on the strong side. As I said before, you don't know if their jungle is going to be doing an early gank bot or if their jungle is just going to be clearing top, right? Since you don't know what direction their jungler is going to go in, you need to make sure that if their bot lane leashed and you leashed, that you get an early ward over here. This ward is really important because, like I said, there's 2 scenarios. If their jungler comes and ganks bot, he's going to walk over this ward. But if he ganks top, he's not going to walk over this ward, but it's not wasted because it kept you safe. So in general, you want to place this ward here if you are playing on the weak side really early to stop the early gank. And this is if the enemy bot leashed. You want to place it early if the enemy bot leashed and you're on weak side. So now, again, there's 2 scenarios that are happening right now. You either have the stronger or weaker bot lane. It's really important that you're not just playing safe always and that you're playing to your lane strengths, because just because you're on weak side doesn't mean you can't play to win lane if you have a stronger bot. So say you have the stronger bot side, what you want to be looking to do is usually shoving into the enemy tower, because when it hits tower, it pushes back to you and you can try and freeze at your tower later. So you have a stronger bot lane in this scenario and we are going to try and shove the enemy under their tower. So we shove the enemy under the tower. Well, now what? Well, again, we're on weak side. There's no way for us to know that the enemy jungler, for instance, didn't come over and steal our jungler's wraiths or something and is going to be ganking us from behind. We just don't know that. So it's too risky for us to push up and pressure tower. At this point, when you shove it in on weak side, you can either take an early recall for boots or something and roam mid or roam top to your strong side, or you can walk up and get vision in the enemy jungle, gank mid, or you can simply just sit there and wait for the wave to hit and come back and then do the same thing over and over again, just crashing waves, and it just gets you a lead because their ADC will be missing CS under tower. You'll be getting a bit of chip at plates, but you just want to push into tower and not play too aggressive if you're on your weak side and you are bot side. So that's the first scenario, is if you have the stronger bot side and you both leash. Now say both bot lanes leashed except you have the weaker. Well, you don't want to be trying to shove, because if you're not strong enough to break the freeze, right? So say you have the weaker bot lane and you take level 1 and push it and they end up freezing it here. They can perma freeze it here, where you will never be able to get it under tower, and you're always going to be at risk of getting ganked because you're going to be overextended. So if you have the weaker bot lane and you both leash, what you want to do is just last hit and try to freeze the wave here with your ADC and not let them shove it in and be over here, right? Another note is that if you're on the weak side, if both bot laners leashed and you're going to be letting it push in your tower, you usually want to be putting your ward, your early ward into this. Why won't it let me place it? Okay, a control ward, why not? You put an early ward into that bush instead. And try to freeze the wave here. One thing I'll note is if you're on the weak side and you freeze the wave here, you have to be careful not to take too much poke, because at any point, you never know if the enemy jungle could be pathing towards you, the enemy mid could be pathing down through the jungle, and they could be looking to dive you, right? So you have to make sure you're not taking too much damage and you're freezing the wave by your tower. So these are the scenarios. If your jungler started bot side, you were on weak side, and the enemy jungle started bot side and was on weak side. Now we're going to go into a different scenario here. So let me quickly reset up the map. So say you're leashing, but in this scenario, one sec. In this scenario, the enemy bot lane didn't leash because their jungler started top side. This is the Omega weak side. So we did a weak side where both sides leash bot. That's weak side, except you're coming into lane even and you can play around it. And this lane state is the most scary because you have no control over the wave because you're leashing. There's a trick where when the wave's coming in, they can walk up, tank the wave, and walk into the bush, and this will create a slow push towards themselves. So the side that's not leashing actually has two options where they can create a slow push themselves, or they can start shoving into your tower to pressure plates because they didn't leash and they know they're on the strong side. So we'll first go over the scenario where I guess the more simple scenario that they just start pushing as you get. So you come down to bot lane, and by the time you get there, you have to be playing back and you have to be trying your hardest to freeze the wave here, right? Again, if they're shoving into your tower level 1, they probably have a stronger bot lane and they can probably shove it in, which is why they're doing it. But you have to try your best to freeze the wave here if you can, because it'll give yourself the advantage where you can freeze it here and you can stay safe, right? So sorry, I didn't draw it. Your jungler, whoopsies. Embarrassing. Okay, nice. So your jungler is going top side, and their jungler, you have to assume he's coming bot side unless you see him on a ward, right? So yeah, you have to be worried because at any point, if they can poke you or get you low enough, they can have their jungler come dive, or if they crash it into the tower, the wave will push back to them. So let's say you're in the bot lane here, and they do actually manage to crash the wave into tower, and now it's pushing back to them, and they're just sitting for their jungler to try and get a gank. So say they crashed into tower and now they've frozen the wave over here. You have to now try your hardest to now, this is the feels bad scenario because there wasn't much you can do in this scenario because they had a leash and you didn't. You have to try and break it and shove it in. If you cannot, sometimes you just have to leave a bad wave and go back to base and buy and come back or roam or something because you could be getting ganked. It's really, really hard to play in this state. If the enemy team doesn't leash and they shove you in and create a slow push towards themselves. So there's one more scenario, which is that their bot lane didn't leash and they created a slow push towards themselves. So say they pulled the wave and now they created a slow push towards themselves. It's basically what I just said a second ago. Anytime they freeze it slow pushing towards themselves, you have to shove it in because if you don't, their jungle will eventually get behind you and gank you. So sorry if any of this was a bit confusing. I'll recap really quickly. The two scenarios broken down into their two ways they can be done. So in all these, you are weak side, so you were leashing your jungle. So there was the time where you leashed your jungle and they leashed their jungle. If you have the stronger bot lane, shove into their tower and roam and keep shoving and roaming. If you're the weaker side, try to freeze it by your tower and not let them shove it in as best you can because it'll start slow pushing themselves. If they didn't leash to their jungler and they came down, you're kind of at their mercy. If they just start shoving into you, you have to counteract and try to stop the shove as best you can or find like an opening on them. Or if they're starting a slow push towards themselves, you got to shove it in. In general, no matter what the scenario is, you really just want to be finding out if you're just trying to shove it into their tower or keep it frozen is what this really comes down to. But in the end, it's because you're on the weak side that you're not able to pressure the tower when you're pushing in. And it's why it's very dangerous if they push it in to not let it slow push towards them because you don't have your jungle to help you. If anything happens, you're always alone. And as weak side, you just have to remember, try not to fight if you don't need to. Try to just farm, 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 shove, and freeze. That's all you want to be doing. So I hope this helped. And now we're going to go on what you do when you're on the strong side, which is definitely the fun side in League of Legends. Okay, strong side of the map, aka the fun side, is what we'll be going over this game. So in this scenario, usually your jungler is getting leashed by the top side and he is pathing towards your lane. You will not be leashing in this scenario because you're on the strong side and your jungle is pathing bot side. So there's two scenarios if the enemy bot lane is leashing and if they're not leashing. So if they are leashing, this means you have full control of the wave level 1. And I kind of explained this on the weak side, but now I'll be showing you how to play on the strong side. So if you did not leash, you either have to figure out whether you have a stronger bot lane or not. You can make two scenarios. Is one, you walk up and pull the wave, and you pull as the minion wave is coming, you let it attack you, walk into a bush. This will cause the wave to come down and start pushing towards you. This is really, really good because it'll help you hit level 2 first, and you can start to pull the wave towards you and try to freeze it at their tower. As they come, they'll have no choice because they weren't there at the same time and the wave is now pushing towards you. So now you can try your best to freeze the wave over here, right? And have the enemy bot lane come up. And the reason this is good is because while you freeze this here, your jungle can come down bot side and now he can come and gank their bot lane and hopefully convert it into a kill on one of their members and get you guys snowballed early. So this is the scenario where you're getting strong side and their bot side doesn't leash and you create a push into your side. There's the other scenario where their bot lane leashed and you then started off by pushing the wave into their tower. So say they didn't leash and as the wave comes in, you instantly start pushing it and you push it under their tower, right? In this scenario, I know before on the weak side, I said when you shove it in that you don't want to be trying to harass the tower. But in this scenario, because your jungle is actually moving towards the bot side of the map, this means you are more safe to walk up and now pressure the tower. So now you can walk up and attack the tower, try to poke them under the tower. You can do whatever you want because your jungler is here to back you up. And if their jungle does show up, your jungle can come in and counter gank. And because you were stronger, you guys should win the fight. So yeah, if your bot lane leashed and you are stronger, you can shove it under the tower, create pressure. Also, if their jungle doesn't show up as your jungle is doing scuttle crab and you have prio, you can come over and help them do scuttle and maybe transition to gank mid with your jungle. So there's just lots of things you can do while you're shoving the wave under tower, and usually it's preferred scenario. So there's the other scenario now. So that was the scenario where their bot lane leashed and didn't leash and you're on strong side. Or they did leash and you're on strong side, and you could either force under their tower and create pressure where you can help your jungle with scuttle and gank mid or something, or the scenario where you create a push towards yourself and freeze it by your tower where they can get ganked from your jungle. So the other scenario is if their jungle actually started top side too, and they're actually maybe on their strong side also now. Again, you don't know, their jungle could be still ganking top, but if they didn't leash and you didn't leash, good chances are you're both on strong side. So in this scenario, can be very, very, very disastrous because that means both jungles are most likely pathing towards bot, and both jungles are most likely going to be showing up for an early gank because they're trying to get scuttle crab. So you mostly want to be thinking about that happening if both sides don't leash. It's very, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's only a few scenarios. I'll try to go through it really quick. If both sides didn't leash and you're stronger, you're trying to shove it under their tower, so you have prio to go in for the scuttle crab. And if you're not stronger, you're trying to freeze the wave by your tower potentially, so that hopefully your jungler can get down bot and get behind them before their jungle shows up. Maybe your jungle then can gank them, forcing them off, at which point you can move up with your jungler and help them get the scuttle crab. In general, that's what it'll be coming down to. If both junglers are pathing towards your lane, right? So again, their jungle started topside also in this scenario. If both junglers are pathing towards your lane, usually the lane is about trying to get prio for the scuttle crab that's going to be spawning. It's really important that you remember that. If both junglers are going bot, you trying to get prio somehow in your lane so that you can go to the scuttle crab. But in the opposite scenario, if their jungle starts bot side and it's pathing top, it's not as important to have prio in your lane, because even if you don't have prio in your lane, usually the jungler without prio can just gank, get you a little prio and go, and it's not too hard because their jungle wasn't there to counter gank. So yeah, I'll really quickly again recap it without trying to be too boring. You are on strong side because your jungle is pathing towards you, going to help. If they leash their jungle, you can either shove it into their tower and freeze it by your tower and wait till your jungle comes to gank. You can freeze it by this to shove to gank, or you can just keep shoving it and looking to roam mid or looking to roam the enemy jungle. If their bot lane didn't leash and you're both there, again, you're either trying to freeze it by your tower so your jungle can gank, or you want to keep prio in so you can roam to the scuttle crab. It's really simple. Hopefully this guide helped you guys. Just a quick things that weren't in the guide, because this was mostly about just like the level 1 to 3. Weak side, strong side applies throughout the whole game. I basically in this video just went through the scenarios of the first few minutes of the game, but you always have to remember when you're on weak side that you're expecting your team to be getting advantages on the other side of the map, because that's where your jungler is. And if you're on the strong side, you should be expecting to play aggressive, maybe looking for dives and stuff. Actually, that's a very good scenario that I didn't mention, is if you're on the strong side, your jungle can be pathing bot. So say their jungle is pathing top for sure, and your jungle is pathing bot, and you shove them under tower with the wave, you can actually get a scenario where you chunk them out and your jungler can come from behind and set up a dive because of the fact that you were playing it really strong. So yeah, hopefully this just like helps you guys understand what it is and what it isn't. This was my 4th episode of How to Support series. If you didn't catch the first ones, I did one on warding, on roaming, how to position in lane, and this is on the weak side, strong side. So if you guys enjoyed it, please, it's actually a lot more work than you would realize to be making these weekly videos for you guys. So like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, help me make this a bigger thing, because yeah, it's a lot of work, and I hope you guys really appreciate the work I'm putting in to help you guys improve. Until next week, see you guys later, man.